Right, thanks for coming along. So, I'm talking healthy eating, but a little different to sort of general guidelines. Those of you that know me know I generally don't go by that sort of thing. But I'm just going to follow through these, obviously this way. Alright? So that one on the top right, are you familiar with that image? The food pyramid sort of image. You've seen this before? Yeah? Or nowadays they do it like, they do it as a plate, and you get a portion. And we got down here is basically grain. And then we have fruit and veg. And then we've got what, dairy and meat. And then we've got fat here. Do you guys, anyone eat like that? That kind of follow that sort of guideline, or you did? Yeah. Fair enough. Same used to, or yeah, okay. So I've kind of manipulated some statistics a little bit here. If you go to the ones below there, there's a couple of graphs. Now this thing, incidentally, this was issued in 1992 in America, but we tend to follow their guidelines most of the time. The science goes out all the West Coast. If you look at those two graphs there, let's just, the one that's on the left, that's looking at carbohydrate intake. Okay? And as you can see, when it gets to about mid-80s, 90s, it just shoots up. With me there? And then, just as an example on the left, there's an example of where diabetes rates have gone up at the same sort of rate. Same thing with obesity, goes up at about the same rate. So basically, carbohydrate has gone up. Another thing that's gone up is overall calorie intake, which I've not written on there, but overall calorie intake has gone up. And then so has obesity, diabetes, it's all gradually gone up. And those of you a little older than me might have anecdotally seen this. Now, actually, someone you probably might not know, the percentage of fat in the diet over that time has actually gone in the opposite direction. So like our grandparents ate a lot more dietary fat in proportion to what than we do. Now, I can obviously this is a very much just casually linking things, but there is a trend between obesity, diabetes going up, carbohydrate and calories going up, and fat going down. And yet if we go on this old school food pyramid, obviously, fat has been demonized for a long time. Yeah? Okay. Let's do this one. I've got tissue in. Right. Okay. So I've got there problems with the diet, lacking in vital nutrients. By that, I will go into that a little more later. Blood sugar and insulin. I talk with people I've trained, we'll talk a lot about this. But basically, you eat carbohydrates, your blood sugar goes up, the hormone insulin goes up to make sure your blood sugar goes down. And insulin dictates where the sugar must be either used for energy or stored as fat or stored in your muscles, basically. Now, if you're not burning it up, exercising, obviously, it's going to be stored. I've said it's completely at odds with our ancestral diet. In the last 10 years or so, there's been a bit of a movement in sort of like paleo-style eating. So trying to look at eating, taking the hypothesis of what our ancestors ate is what we're genetically evolved to eat. So trying to match it up more with that is better for health and weight. I'll go into that again more in a second. So essentially, it's too low in fats, too low in protein, it's too high in carbohydrate. Again, I'll go into that more in a little bit. So next one there, Rick, what our ancestors actually ate. So obviously, from a hunter-gatherer perspective, it was plants and animals. Yeah? So it wasn't grains, rice even needs farming. Pasta bread, completely processed. No dairy entered the diet in the last couple of years. Potatoes obviously grow under the ground. So I was speculating about how much they were available, but it's certainly more than as much as these grew above the ground. Makes sense? So, in essence, obviously, life has become easier for us. We drive the hard at work, you sit down at work, there's even tele-remote so you don't have to get up and change the channel. We move less by default. And yet, the food that gives us energy to move at high intensity carbohydrate, we eat more of. Does that make sense? So it doesn't really add up. Looking at what our ancestors would have eaten, moderate protein. So in other words, when they could get it, they would eat meat. And if you look at it, the history of the Earth, it kind of goes through ice ages. So we hear about there was an ice age 10,000 years ago. Right? Yeah, ish. Do you know a little bit more about this sort of thing? From what I can, from what I've read, over time, there's an ice age. We go back to this sort of climate, and then periodically there's often ice ages. And in an ice age, obviously we can't eat plants, we have to eat animals. All you can eat there is other animals. So we've evolved to be able to eat a lot of fat and a lot of protein. At the bottom there, I've written iron, essential fatty acids, amino acids, and micronutrients. Basically, fatty acids, we've heard of omega-3 and omega-6. It gets banded around a bit. The term essential fatty acid, well, the term essential anything, basically means that your body can't make it itself. So if it can't make it itself, you're going to have to get it out of the diet. Which makes sense? So that is, it's essential you eat that for health. Same with amino acids. Amino acids get made into proteins. Proteins make up skin, bones, muscles, all tissues. Essential amino acids, again, are ones that you can't make yourself. So you have to get it from the diet. So eating plants, well, eating animals especially, are high in both those things. Micronutrients, some of the vitamins we can't make ourselves. And things like iron, zinc, you need dietary, you need it from your diet. These are all things that you get in plants and animals that you don't really get a lot of in grains, which is the biggest part of nutrient. That makes sense? Right, flip over for me. So that first slide here, I've basically touched on that already. So the things that we can't make, some of the vitamins and minerals, essential amino acids, and essential fatty acids. Now, one thing that you can make for yourself is glycogen, which is basically, whenever you eat carbohydrate, that will eventually become glycogen, which you store in your liver, you store in your muscles, therefore you store it as adipose tissue, as fat. Now, when you work at high intensity, your body uses a pathway that uses glycogen as fuel. So that's when you burn it up. At low intensities, you tend to burn more fat. High intensities, more glycogen. So sprinting, lifting weights, that sort of thing, you'll burn up essentially what carbohydrate is. Interesting thing is though, your body can make it itself. It can make glycogen from other things. So it's called glyconeogenesis. And you can make things like protein, fats into glycogen to be used as fuel. So you see, I'm not advocating that's all we're going to and no one eats any carbohydrates ever. That's not the point. But my point is that in theory, you don't have to eat anything to be healthy. Does that make sense? Because your body can make it itself. So let's go. Next one there. Kind of touched on this already as well. Those essential nutrients, amino acids, are basically in proteins. Now, most you know I'm not a big fan of vegetarian diets either. One of the reasons is that, so you've got protein. You say you eat a chunk of meat. It gets broken down into amino acids, right? Small parts. They then get synthesized, protein synthesis, back into tissue. So this could have been a meaty weight, and this could be your bicep, right? Okay, that's a hypothetical example. Now, some of these little things you can make yourself. Some of them you can't. So that's hence the term essential amino acid. The foods that have all of the ones of these you need are basically meat, fish, and eggs, and some dairy. They have all of them in. So you get protein in things like nuts and seeds, and indeed you'll get a tiny amount of grains. But it won't have all of these. So you have to eat a variety. Does that make sense? Okay, good. Again, essential fatty acids, like fish oil is a big thing. It's not healthy. Like a lot. Does any of you take fish oil? Anyone? No? Oh, Don't get stressed about it. No? Fine, I'll aim this way a little bit. Have you heard of fish oil being touted as a healthy thing? So, essential fatty acids are omega-3 and omega-6. Omega-6 you can get in like vegetable oil, you get in most oils. Typically, we get about a ratio of 16 to 1 omega-6 to omega-3. Now, they reckon that it should be roughly 1 to 1. And so that fish oil is one example of something that's really high in omega-3. So if you're with me, typically, most people have too much omega-6. A good way to balance it out, because it's difficult to get it from a diet unless you're eating a lot of oily fish and seafood, is fish oil tablets. Either way, you do need both. Okay? Right. And we go now to the next one. So see that graph I've got on the bottom left? So I've been talking a lot about what fat is good at fats. And one thing that we heard, fat gives you heart disease. Saturated fat is bad for you. Are these things that you've heard? These are messages?
Yeah.
It's funny, France is a big player in this actually. So typically, don't eat saturated fat. Fat is bad for you, it gives you heart disease. That's just what we're told, that's like the dogmatic view.
Does the doctor in the manufacturer say that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We can go into conspiracy theories. Basically, that graph, it's a little small on this page, isn't it? But what it essentially got is it's taken about 15 countries and it's got the amount of saturated fat people in those countries typically eat. And then it's also brought that against the prevalence of heart disease. And the general trend, as you can see from the line, the best fit, is basically that countries that eat more saturated fat tend to have less heart disease, which is obviously completely at odds with what we're told. There used to be a thing called the French paradox, by where France is known for eating a lot more saturated fat than the Western countries, but France has a very low level of heart disease compared to other countries. So, just going by that, that's pretty much anecdotal evidence, isn't it? Saturated fat probably isn't so bad for your heart. Now, I've looked at studies and meta-analyses of this, and the link in the literature between saturated fat and heart disease isn't really there. Saturated fat is also in a lot of nutrient-dense foods. So, eggs, nuts, oils, meat tends to be quite high in saturated fat, but they're also high in vitamins and high in essential fatty acids and proteins. As I've written there, countries with a high saturated fat intake usually have low levels of heart disease. Here's the other one. So cholesterol, that's the other one that we're all told to lower. And actually, in researching this, even me just Googling, I just Google the word cholesterol, the top one is an advert for lowering your cholesterol. And it's, right, you can't get away from the fact that we're told cholesterol low, it should be low, it should be low. Now, one thing, before we get into whether that's an issue, here's a bet. Eggs, you used to get told not to eat eggs because it will raise your cholesterol. Anyone high cholesterol will stop eating eggs. But the dietary cholesterol and serum cholesterol in blood are completely different things. And as with most things, the body's clever. The more cholesterol you eat, the less it will produce. So about 80% of the cholesterol in your body is just made by itself. It's not even taken in from that. So the link between what you eat in cholesterol and that amount in your blood is barely anything, basically. Does that make sense? Further to that, you don't necessarily want low cholesterol. I read a couple of research papers this week that were basically in older populations, when they measured their cholesterol, like I think these people were sort of 60, 70-year-olds, and then over 10, 20 years, looked at how many of them died, basically. Now, the ones that had lower cholesterol than recommended, I think it was something like 42 times more of them died than the ones who were high cholesterol. That was obviously a small sample size. But I've seen a few examples of this where having slightly high cholesterol is probably better for you than having slightly low. I mean, cholesterol makes up membrane, like the cells have a membrane on the outside. Cholesterol makes up the membrane to that. It makes bile in the liver. It basically transports things. Low cholesterol slings are being compressed. Now, I'm not saying you want to have a ridiculously high cholesterol, but having slightly higher rather than slightly lower, I would say is probably, from what I've read, a good thing. Down there, I've just read a few examples of some neurological diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and linked to people with low blood pressure. Depression is a big one, definitely. Right, let's get on to what I've been demonizing then. So carbohydrates. Now, sometimes when I give someone like a diet plan, and their friends will come back and be like, oh, it looks like the Atkins diet. And the Atkins diet, which was obviously very popular sort of 20, 30 years ago, is like an absolutely no carbohydrate whatsoever. Not even, you're allowed about like a cup of fruit vegetables. Now, if I'm telling you to eat fruit, I'm definitely telling you to eat vegetables, nuts, seeds. They have got a little bit of carbohydrate in them. It's not that there's none whatsoever. Now, see that quote there, feeding a sedentary population and energy dense diet is crazy. I heard this quote somewhere on a podcast I was listening to, and it was like I was saying, we're moving less and less, and yet we're feeding ourselves more and more of the food that gives you energy, which it just doesn't add up. So, like I said, carbohydrate is broken down to glycogen, which you use at high intensity for exercise. So, for people who do a lot of exercise, it's useful. If you're a sports person and you're trying to optimize performance, it will give you fuel to do the work. You know, if you're trying to build for guys trying to get more muscular, it'll increase the size of muscle because it gets stored, and also it will fuel weight training, sprinting, anything that's at high intensity, you'll use that for fuel. If you're not doing that much of it though, it's not generally the foods that are high in it. Don't have any of the vitamins you need, they don't have the essential fatty acids you need, all those things that your body you need, they're not in there. So I basically treat it, if we come over the other side, I just treat it like a supplement basically. So I will eat some, but again, that's just to help me with training. If I wasn't training, I'd say, why would, I don't need it. I wouldn't eat it because there's no need for me to eat it. It's tasty. And when you were talking about with margarine companies, it's the same kind of thing with grains. How long does it keep? The pasta, the bread, the rice, you can keep in your cupboard for years and you can still eat it. So companies don't lose money on it going off. You can make a big markup on it. And also, to be honest with you, we couldn't all eat, if we all ate steak every day, it wouldn't work. There's not a steak. Right? The price would just go through the roof. We wouldn't be able to afford it. So for 7 billion people in the world to eat meat and veg every day, can't happen. There's not enough food out there for us. So public health policy can't tell you to eat the way I'm kind of coming across here because it's just not sustainable. But if you want to be healthy for yourself, it doesn't add up to eating a high grain diet. Does that make sense? So there, I've given like I got like this. You don't have to eat this way, obviously, but literally, we take our food pyramid and turn it completely upside down. Right? And we go fat here. Now bear in mind that when you're working at low intensities, when you're sleeping, right now when you're sat down, you're probably burning fat as a fuel. You're oxidizing more fat at low intensities. That will be the fuel that you use the most. And again, it tends to come along with essential nutrients for your health. Underneath that, I'd go with kind of a protein. Protein's an interesting one in that you don't need a huge amount. Take your body weight in kilos. So take me, I'm 100 kilos. That's a nice amount. If I wasn't training, that's something I would say roughly a gram per kilo. That'd be cool. That'd be enough to keep me going. About 100 grams per kilo. If I'm training with weights, if I'm breaking down proteins, I'm looking to build muscle, that's something, I might up that to more like 2 grams. That's going to be dependent upon the amount of work that you do. Also, from a weight perspective, I've not really designed this as a weight thing, but I saw studies where they overfed people protein, right? So they have 2 groups, gave them the same amount of food except for one, and I think it was 4 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. So they were like 4 grams of protein, which is crazy. They had to take shakes, that would be like 10 to 15 shakes. And they had more calories, but it was only in protein. And they did not put on any extra body fat to the group that they controlled them. Even though they ate more calories, it was only protein. So protein is the least likely to be stored as fat for one, And I talk about when you eat food and it takes calories to digest it. Now, these two fat carbohydrate, about 10% of the energy of the food gets lost in digestion. So say 100 calories of pasta, about 90 calories is actually useful to me. Protein is more like 30 to 35%, about a third of the energy is lost. So for moderating weight in terms of calorie intake, having this high is really useful. That makes sense? Right. Have we got any? That's all I wanted to cover there. We've got like 3 or 4 minutes. Anyone, any questions you'd like to ask about any of that? No? What's that? Say again, it's not. Yeah. It is. And it's more expensive to eat. Yeah, to be honest with you, the whole thing is this isn't necessarily a cost-effective diet for you or for the public sector, but it's just the most helpful diet. That is, you still have a good point though, in that if people are looking to lose weight, they want to be as energy inefficient as possible. So that's what it's all about. So you want your metabolism to be as quick as possible, you want to be burning off energy by accident as much as possible. So that was kind of the point I was making. Alright? Right, brilliant. I'll be around, so if you do want to ask me anything, then just come and see when you're on. But thanks a lot for coming along. Alright?